Hi, everyone. Melissa and Melissa coming to you today to talk about adult ADHD. We'll probably talk a little bit about dyslexia too. And we're going to dig into what triggers adult ADHD, what makes it worse, and give you some really clear tips around what you can do to really help yourself with that. So would you like to start? Melissa is she works in the mental health world, and this is something that she is really good at helping her clients with. I look at it more from a functional medicine perspective and look at, mechanics in the body, what's not working right, what's happening in the brain that's not connecting right. So we'll look at it from both these perspectives, but I would love for you to start and just kind of give us kind of what is adult ADHD? What's it feel like? What's it look like? And then really start walking into what are some of the possible triggers.
Yeah. So, and I encounter this in my business too. One of my businesses where I mentor a lot of adults, and it's something that people say, and a lot of times they'll say it half joking. Oh, my ADHD or my ADD, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't even necessarily clarify the difference between the two, and there are
Mm-hmm.
differences. But I think what I've come to discover, and I know we were just talking about this too, is we live in a world where everyone wants a diagnosis for something,
Mm-hmm.
for any of their shortcomings. And I don't say that in a dismissive way. I say it in like, if so I had said to Melissa before we started that if I had grown up in this era, they would have caught my dyslexia. I used to
Mm-hmm.
transpose numbers. I think I do it less now. I don't even know that I do it anymore, but it was something that, as
Mm-hmm.
you can imagine, made me not really great at math. So I'd be like a straight A student and get like a C in math, right? Which made no sense because I was working my tail off. Um, then this like hyperactivity, and some of my friends will joke like my squirrel brain because I can kind of like be on a tangent. But despite all that, I've built businesses, I've
Mm-hmm.
been able to help people, and I really believe we can overcome a lot of these things through just discipline and systems. And then also obviously tweaks inside of our gut health, our diet, and some real big habit changes. And I say that because, we live in a society where there's constantly a lot of things that could pull our attention, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can't tell you how many times when I'm working with people and they have a hard time being present, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, they'll be like, well, like, when's the last time you sat and watched a movie? And I don't mean watch it with like, your phone in your hand. I mean, like sat there and watched it. And this even goes into, Melissa and I were talking about just like how can you show up on a vacation, right? Like how do you need to change your energy state? And working on it really
Mm-hmm.
always keeps boiling down to like how can I be present?
Mm-hmm.
And and so, I I know for myself it's something I've certainly gotten better at because, I also always used to be really impressed with myself that I could multitask so much. Um, I have to say I really do a lot less of that now.
Mm-hmm.
I am a huge fan of post-it notes. They're all over my desk. They all have a purpose and a reminder, right? But it's like if something pops into my brain, I just write it down and then it's like, okay, I'll look at that later, right? But it's being strategic in how can I work with myself. Now, I think we have this idea that people who are, successful or more organized or whatever just happen to be that way. I will tell you, after being mentored by a lot of awesome business people and being good friends with folks who have created a lot of success and wealth, like that's not true. Everyone has just figured out ways to work with how their brain works. So a
Mm-hmm.
piece of this is spending enough time with yourself to know what that even looks like. Like I can remember, when I hit a certain point in one of my businesses, everyone's like, well, tell us how you did it. And so I made a sheet and I was laughing as I made the sheet because I'm not like a sheet person. I have notebooks with lists. Again, post-its are actually like for me a key piece of staying organized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's very rudimentary, right? So everyone kind of wanted this beautiful system. And I was transparent about like, these are the things that I cover in my notebook. which now we have this beautiful workbook someone made. That's not where my brain goes, but I've always been honest about, like, I think that's a phenomenal tool, but I've also built my system over the last, almost 9 years. So I keep using my system because it works and it still covers all those components, right?
Yeah.
But I understand when I'm, coaching, someone in my business, Post-its may not sound appealing, but I do know that even with some of my college students, I'm thinking in particular, this young lady that I work with, and she's awesome. And she really struggled around procrastination, and, then she get overwhelmed, and, this cycle that's very common.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I said to her was, we're going to start making lists. And I said to her, like, if you have Post-its, like, I think this is good. And she was like, I do. And I said, okay, so you're going to, on the Post-it, you're going to make your list. So what are the short tasks? And this is something I've actually coached a lot of people. What are little things that you can do, right? So that could be whether it's school assignments, stuff for your business, whatever. What are the little things you can do? Things that will take you a few minutes. That could be a social media post. It could be, texting clients. It could be whatever. And then it's like, or maybe, for me, it used to be, like English homework took me very little time. Math was always last because I needed to really drill in, right? Then, I said, okay, then what are some of the tasks that maybe, you have like a month to write a paper or whatever, but that's going to go on a separate one. And so that you can knock off those smaller things first. Mm-hmm. And that can apply to any area, right? Like, so even when, all the places I lived prior to getting someone who, comes and cleans my house now, like, it was creating a system around how to clean my apartment. So, like, what do I do first? What are the shorter tasks, whatever, and knocking those things off. And so what I have kind of realized over time is that if we can create a system around whatever it is we're doing, right, you're going to feel successful because you'll be able to start and finish it versus, if you're like, just kind of like, I'm going to pick up the house, but you don't have clarity around what that needs to look like. Mm-hmm. It's like you start picking up the house and it's like, oh shoot, I'm over here and this dishes need to be done. And then, it's like having a list of like, all right, so if the list is, I'm going to, dust, I'm going to sweep, and I'm going to do the dishes, it's like having that laid out and then you stick to that list. And so, and, some people choose to do this electronically, like whatever works for folks, but having a plan. The other thing, I still have a paper planner. My brain works best with things laid out.
Yep.
And so because I like to, make notes here and there, I have one that has the whole day laid out, the whole week laid out. And then it also has a month layout, and so for me, again, that's a really ideal system to keep myself organized. And so but the key piece that I think people don't want to do is the figuring out what works, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. So ADD, that's attention deficit disorder. So that means, you kind of lose your interest. Now, we live in a world where we've actually wired our brains to be inattentive because of these things, right? Scrolling, reels, right? We are in a constant state of give me as much information as you can in a tiny window. So, and I will tell you guys this, one of the worst things I learned was in grad school. I had a speed reading course. Now, I can read through something very quickly, but I actually have not ever been able to unlearn that skill. It's still something I'm working on, but it's crazy to me that my brain absorbed that skill so quickly. And it's like, I cannot undo it. It's like really very hard for me to not speed read. To the point where people be like, you read that already? I'm like, yeah. And I get the gist of it, whatever, but it's something I'm like, really like, I need to undo that, And so slowing down. The ADHD is when you become hyperactive. Now, I don't think too many adults have this hyperactivity. Sometimes people think that if they have to doodle or they're fidgeting. To me, honestly, it's training that muscle around just being. And then this is where I really feel food comes in. And obviously, Melissa, I know you're going to tag into this part, but, like take for instance, and I really, I sugar, gluten, yes. dyes, right? Like, have you ever witnessed a kid after they eat red frosting? Like, and I'm using that example because when I did the studio, one of the little ones, she brought her dinner. I don't know what the heck she had for dinner, but she literally had a cup of red frosting. And I'm watching this kid like scale walls after. And dyes are so disruptive to our system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, this is an area where people really need to be hyper vigilant about what they are using for their fuel
Mm-hmm.
sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, especially it's really easy for, I can't tell you how many kids that I get, oh, they have ADHD. Okay. But and unfortunately, not everyone's always willing to discuss diet. But if they would, I'm like, we could make some massive changes if we can work on the gut health,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my point is there's a biological piece to how we can work on this, and then there's also a habitual piece. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I said with the habits, creating systems. I know I purposely will get my phone away from me. It's interesting when I am in groups of people, I notice folks that, especially, I think this generation, I want to say like 30 and younger, if they're remotely uncomfortable or feeling a little insecure, they just grab their phone,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they don't lean into that discomfort of just being. Now,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a person who just kind of loves to people watch and take things in. And I've really, I mean, I've actually gotten so much better at this that sometimes, a lot of times I'll be like, I don't really know where my phone is, which is awesome because 100% I absolutely used to be guilty of this, but it's something that I've really had to work on. And I purposely make sure I put my phone down, and if people need to, leave it in a different room,
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes I'll just put it on my kitchen island and, be in my living room, but just creating space because it's
Mm-hmm.
too easy when there's a moment of silence, or God forbid there's like a commercial break and folks grab their phone. I'm like, well, what's going on
Mm-hmm.
over here, right? Um, Now listen, there's times where, like, month end in one of my businesses is a very hectic day. So that day I know I'm going to be on my phone more than I am most of the time. But
Mm-hmm.
I really try to make sure then that beginning of the next month, there's a day or two where I'm just really cognizant of how much I'm touching my devices. And I actually, like, I don't have an iPad and all this stuff, but this is where I do get concerned for little people because we're living in a time where parents will hand those over. And I do get it. Really, I do. Like, it is obviously an easy way to keep your child occupied and engaged. And I think that there can be some great educational games and things that can be put on them. I think the danger is when kids are just roaming on YouTube and other things. But it's also, if that becomes the constant, that's not good either, right? Now, like I have a really good friend, and her son is very active. So he does all sorts of things. He's super imaginative. He'll play, play, play. He's like such a boy. So when she needs him to sit quietly, yeah, like she'll give him, one of his little games, and he only has access to that. There's no, like, he can't go anywhere else. If she needs him to just kind of sit quietly for 30 minutes. But to her credit, she holds herself to that 30-minute window, and then, that's it, and we move on. And because she follows through with that, there's not the meltdowns and all the things. So, I think that things like that are meant to be a tool, right? Our phones as adults are a tool, but we
Mm-hmm.
have to be aware of how often we're just on it and using them as a drug because, I'm seeing more and more studies about people are addicted to their devices.
Mm.
Um, and, it becomes like, again, this other thing, like, well, like I can't tell you how many clients are like, well, I need to get back to reading because I just sit and scroll on my phone at night. It's like, right. And again, like I fully own that I have been guilty of these things at moments. So I'm just pointing out some things that I've tried to really be aware of for myself to change, to work on. But I think if you want to see different results in your life, your business, your ability to focus and be present. Like these are things we got to do, which again, sometimes easier said than done, right? But so that's kind of, I know I just spouted out a lot of content there, but
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you shared around some very concrete ideas about how to really kind of retrain ourselves and give like new systems. Just to kind of give ourselves a permission to explore what works best for me or what works best for you or for our dear folks that are watching. What works best for you, right? How can you really give yourself new ways and then stick with those ways, right? So one of the things that I've seen, especially with adult, it usually starts as kiddos, but with adult ADHD is that when it remains, even after they become an adult, where I go is what is causing, because think about what happens in the brain, right? We're electrical beings. That's how thoughts happen, is electrical impulses in the brain. Same thing with, seizures and things like that. And I'm not saying ADHD is anywhere close to that, but the electrical impulses and the mess that can happen up there, if there is toxicity, heavy metals, if we've got, parasites in the brain, if we've got not enough fat being fed to the brain so the brain remains healthy, because quite frankly, your brain is made of fat. That's the biggest part of this, right? And so when the body needs to sequester something away, like a heavy metal, especially lead or mercury or something like that, it's not going to put it in, fat in your arm or fat in your butt or fat around your belly. It's going to be here, right? And think about what happens. Even, have you ever messed with batteries and like little core, electric stuff to be able to, we did that in school. We built these little wee motors and everything. It was just so cool. And think about that, but think about the spark and how the spark made that motor go, right? Think about our thoughts and what happens here and everything that happens in the brain. Those sparks are very controlled up here to create a thought process, right? A linear thought process. And when those don't work right, or there's a break, or there's a short, we all know what that kind of, what that looks like in electricity. But think about that's what happens with your brain. What shorts out a like a cord and a battery, right? It's if it touches something else metal that conducts. It's the very same thing in very basic terms, what happens up here, right? So when I have somebody who has any like neurological issues and ADHD, ADD, when we have anything that has to do with the brain, those are the places that I go. Is what, in its very simplest form, what is messing with the continuity of those electrical impulses and frequencies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So when I'm looking at this clinically, I'm going, okay, what do we have here? And sometimes it is inflammation based, because think about when something inflames, when it gets, right? Any extra room that there was is no more. We've got things smushed up against each other, right? Think about that. And so go back to what you just talked about around, inflammation. It doesn't just happen here or in the hands or in the knees or in the ankles. It's in the body. Right. So we need to think about food. Do we have a food situation that's causing inflammation? Do we have an inability of the body to be able to release toxins out of the body? Is the lymph system working? Are you going to the bathroom? Right. Thinking of things, just the very basic things. And as we go deeper, if those things are off, very likely other things are going to be off, and we may even have toxicity of different things in the actual brain tissue. And when we can change those pieces, oh my goodness. And I'll just talk to this for, I was never really classified as ADD or ADHD. I wasn't really a hyper child. I was a very kind of a thoughtful child, very task oriented. Not because that was necessarily my natural bent, but I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders when I was a kiddo. So that's what you did, right? But I had a lot of trouble with math. Math is not my strong point, but it's because I was so dyslexic, and there for a while it was so hard for me to read. But now that I am where I am today, I realized that as I got more and more sick with MS, and there was just so many things going wrong, especially neurologically for me, I couldn't even do math. Literally, I had to use my fingers and toes or a calculator. I couldn't do math. But it was because that has so many steps in it, and my brain just couldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
So now that I've worked on all the different pieces and my brain is working really well, I'm still not good at math. And it's not a thing that I love, but I can do it, right? And I don't have trouble reading. That has pretty well taken care of itself. Once in a while, I'll transpose numbers, but not a lot. So it's like there are so many things in the body that we can do to maximize how this works. Does that make sense?
Totally. Well, I think it always boils back down to like, I was having this conversation. So like, there's no silver bullet. People look for the one thing, whether it's in regards to their health.
It's hardly ever one thing.
Never one thing, success, whatever. I think that's the thing people are always looking for is like, what's the one thing, right? And, and everything's a process.
And it's just for you. I mean, like your process is going to be completely different than what my process looks like. Right. And it's so okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, that's the piece, we want people to come away with this, like, there's a lot of things you can do to absolutely improve those symptoms, like
simple things.
And people even will say this, like, I just don't feel motivated. I'm like, motivation is fleeting. You just have to get disciplined, right? And so really, this conversation boils down to everything we need to do. It's always going to be around like just discipline and systems, right? And so including with your food, with, how you're showing up in your life, it's like whatever. There's so many ways that can look. And so I think that's really the thing that we have to remind ourselves too. It's very easy to, look at someone who's maybe where you want to be in regards to something and think, well, maybe they didn't have as many things to overcome. You don't know that, and the bottom line is that, if you start to look at yourself as, I'm a person who deserves to feel better and function better, then that's going to allow you to go, okay, like these are the things I need to do to step into that role. But it's definitely, it's not isolated.
Right.
The process may or may not be quick, but, by starting to do some small things, you can really start to make some changes. And then, just paying attention, I often, when I have clients do like our 30-day program, they'll be like, I feel like I was so much less spacey, when I'm not eating gluten. And it's like, right, so that brain fog, right? And it's like, there's things we can all do to get ourselves in a more optimal state. So then you can, achieve even more in regards to whatever it is you're trying to do, right? But I do think that, it's reminding yourself, like you can set yourself up to be in a better space and getting, clarity, starting with, the things I listed are small things, it's like, what are some little things you can do to just be more present? I always tell clients, scientifically, it's 3 minutes you have to meditate. And even, first of all, we live in a realm where we have these little mini computers and there's so much free meditation stuff on YouTube, right? And it can be whatever realm you want. I mean, I've found awesome like Christian meditations, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally you can, but for 3 minutes, anyone can sit and breathe, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you may find that so relieving that you want to add some time on, but
Mm-hmm.
starting to actually carve out the time to do that, because everyone has 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and I think it's also a funny thing. Like, this was years ago. I remember I was out with a group of friends, and I looked over, and there was this group of like 20 something, and all of them were just sitting there on their phone.
Not even talking.
They weren't even talking to each other. And this is not to like knock that generation. It's just they're so busy photographing, what they're eating or whatever. They're not just being present and being with each other. So it's like, challenge yourself when you're with your people to just be there, to
Mm-hmm.
not be documenting every moment, and just being present.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a great exercise and how to do that, and it's a lot easier when you're in a space with people you enjoy. But um, you know, it's interesting how hard even that can be for folks. You think that's an
Mm-hmm.
easy fix right there, but and then taking a look at the diet piece, and is there other things going on? And you and I both know there
Mm-hmm.
usually are, by
Yep.
nature of living in this world, right? But
Yeah.
the cool thing is that those things can be fixed and modified and tweaked,
Completely. Completely. Yeah.
and it's all good. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a process, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone has an off day. You have some days where you feel like you crushed it, other days you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing today. It's okay. That's part of the human experience, right? And so just
Right.
keep
Yeah.
going. But
Yeah.
we always encourage you guys to reach out to us if you need support in these
Exactly.
areas. Biologically, Melissa's going to be your gal, and then if you need help with some of this mindset stuff and retraining, I'm here to
Mm-hmm.
help you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
stuff I've done, and you were talking about when you were little and operating in a certain way. It's like we all develop certain patterns
Mm-hmm.
out
We
of
do.
necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so powerful. It shows how resilient we all really are. Um, and it's funny, like I had even brought this up just around the systems around a certain part of one of my businesses on a leadership call today. And someone was like, well, what would that look like? Like, what is that? And I was like, well, that's the thing, is that everyone's just got to start doing, and then
Mm-hmm.
they start to figure out what works. Like I have,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I like, is electronic the way for me to go? Do I need to set reminders? Whatever, those things
Mm-hmm.
don't work for me, but I've figured out systems that have. And so, but I think it's also not waiting to like, I need to be on a medication for this or whatever. There's,
Mm-hmm.
not a whole lot of proof that these medications really improve this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they come with a lot of side effects. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's, if you can look for the long-term solution, it's always going to be habit
Exactly.
changes, right?
Mm-hmm. Habit changes. And then the other piece of it too is looking at why the body is having this experience. Why is the body, even when we do all of the mindset things and the habit changes and we do these shifts, right, and we're still not where we want to be, it's like, okay, what is actually in the way of what's happening up here physiologically? What do we have happening? Because quite frankly, it is in figuring out the why. And part of what you were talking about too is looking at, why have I developed the habits I have now? And sometimes when we can look at that, then it helps with shifting into new habits, is understanding, well, this is why I did this. Is this true for me now? Does it serve me now? And then being able to shift into what does serve me now? What do I want this to look like for me now? What works for what I want to be and who I want to be, right? So if you need help figuring out all of those pieces, Melissa's really good at the mindset, the mental piece. I'm really good at the, figuring out what's going on with the body, right? And understanding why. That's always where I go. Why? You know, my mom, my poor mother, I asked that so much growing up because I wanted to understand. I wanted to know how things work. Why? And those are the questions that we ask is why? Because there's always an answer.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
So we hope this helps someone out there, you guys. Like I said, I feel like it comes up so often. And it's something that people really, they say it in a very flippant way. Oh, I have ADHD. Oh, my ADD.
Right.
But you know, you don't have to wear that as like your identity.
Exactly. Exactly. Love it. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, my dear.
Of course, of course.
Awesome. All right, guys, take care. We'll be back next week.